All right, everyone, welcome back. I am Chase.
I'm Christian.
We are the RMFantasy SXperts here for round 9 of Monster Energy Supercross and for RMFantasy SXperts. Welcome if you're watching. Also remember, if you don't have time to watch it, you can also listen to the podcast, all the major platforms.
Easy to do.
Yeah.
Only helps you, so.
Watch it or listen to it. This week, though, we are headed to
Atlanta.
If only we had a point for every time someone said Hotlanta.
We'd be in the lead.
We'd be in the lead.
No doubt.
All right, but before we talk about Atlanta this week and our track trends, first let's talk about some recaps that we saw last week in Detroit. All right, Christian, Detroit came and went. Let's talk about some results here.
Pretty surprising.
Tomac making the charge, taking the overall.
Like a boss.
Neither one of us had him in first to start.
Tomac back.
Tomac back.
That's what I'm
saying. Tomac got back.
Yep.
I like it. So Tomac, first place. Cooper Webb didn't look good in the first main, but he made a strong comeback to finish second overall. Mr. Chad Reed, number 22.
He says nobody's getting a perfect score this week. I'm taking third. He doesn't care.
All right.
I like it.
Ken Rocks in fourth place. Blake Baggett, fifth. And
Justin Brayton. Wild card.
Yes, ninth place. So there you go. Those are the results. Any highlights, anything that you kind of noticed that stood out this week?
I mean, Brayton taking the whole shot in main one was pretty cool. Seeing him run up front. We didn't think Tomac had a chance to catch him, but
11th to first in that first main event.
Like 14 or 17 laps, so a short
The guy
race.
was on fire.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, though. I just want you guys to remember, if you're listening or watching, I didn't have Tomac in my top spot. I watched qualifying. I had Webb in first. Tomac looks so good in qualifying. He's about a second ahead of Webb in qualifying, and Webb did not look good in the whoops. So I was like, you know what? I think it's going to happen. So I switched up, and it paid off for me.
You gotta adjust.
You gotta adjust sometimes. Watch qualifying. Look at their qualifying times, and if there's a big gap between them, it could be an indicator. But in any sense, it was good.
Which is the complete opposite with Reed, which we had no idea. But that's just kind of
he got good starts. But yeah, so Tomac coming from behind was awesome. There was some some takeouts.
Savachi and Muskin got together.
Yeah, Barsha pushed back high in a berm.
Roxon and Wilson. So
but overall,
it was pretty awesome night of racing.
Yeah, it was good racing. How about user stats?
User stats. We had the highest average score of the year last week of 29.8 points. So everybody was pretty happy. Still no perfect scores this year, though.
Longest drought ever.
Longest drought ever. So we need something there. 18.5% had 2 picks right, so pretty good there. And only 0.11% had 4 picks right. That was the best we had this week. 4.8 had the wild card correct. But we did also crack over 500,000 picks submitted this year so far, which is pretty cool.
But no perfect scores.
No perfect scores.
Wow.
And then the really surprising to me is 42% had Tomac to win, about the norm this year, but only 324 people had Reed. So there's all this Reed army beating us up, beating everybody up, but nobody's really putting their money where their mouth is on this guy. It might be time, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
now, as far as user stats, also we were talking about earlier, we've got some fans. We haven't done a lot of shout-outs this year. We apologize, but you've got a couple you want to throw out there.
Jared Rios hit us with a good question about long and short starts, so we looked that up. We got your answers for you.
Okay.
Sean Powell just stands out. That guy gives us
If you guys haven't seen it, if you look at the comments, he literally writes like a full page review on the races.
And it's good stuff.
It is. It's pretty cool to watch. But we're going to be heading into Atlanta, but before we do that, injuries this week. Seeley, haven't heard yet, but I'd assume he's racing.
Yeah, hopefully. It didn't sound too major, but.
Justin Barsha, he is out. He crashed practicing this week. He will not be lining up. Vince Freezy, Jason Anderson, Malcolm Stewart, and Benny Bloss. Those guys are out, but the 800 of Michael Essie.
I'm excited, dude. We couldn't have enough storylines this year already. Now Michael Essie's back.
Here we go.
I don't know what's going on.
But let's get into it. Headed to Atlanta. Here it is. This is Track Trends.
So, going into the Dirty. I looked at the track features.
Just call it the Dirty.
The Dirty South.
The Dirty South.
We got Atlanta on the map right now.
All right.
I looked at the track map. It's got a huge start straight, interesting rhythm sections, 90-degree sand turn, and an over and under section that you were pretty excited about.
Yeah, I think that sand turn, we saw it at Anaheim 2 was the last one, I believe, and it plagued a few riders. Aaron Plessinger went down there, Cole Seeley. So I like the sand section. I think it mixes it up. I like the over-unders. Long start straight, which takes us to Mr. Rios' question.
Yeah, he asked, how do riders do on long starts compared to short, which is a really good question. I dug into it, and I looked at Glendale, Minneapolis, and Arlington, all that had the long starts, football stadiums, and 2 riders that were started in the top 5 in those 3 rounds.
Yep.
There's only 2 riders that did it. Ken Roxon and Blake Baggett. So Ken Roxon started 1st, 3rd, and 2nd in those races, and Baggett started 4th, 4th, 5th.
Interesting.
So pretty interesting, and they were in the top 5 in those races, I'm pretty sure, unless Minneapolis is where Baggett crashed. But
Baggett won Glendale, though.
yeah, exactly. So that was a good stat for us to look up. Really gave us some insight on our picks.
All right.
2017 highlights.
Yeah, so that was a Triple Crown last year. The track held up pretty good, so look for guys that are going to be strong in the whoop section. Christian Craig spoiled the top 5 when he took 5th overall there last year. But your overall results last year there were Anderson, Musquin, Tomac, Brayton, and Christian Craig.
Yep.
And nobody's won a Triple Crown overall without winning at least one of the mains.
That's right. Something I just looked at from all the Triple Crowns.
Interesting.
And another thing, just since we got done with our second Triple Crown last week, Musquin has been in 15 Triple Crown races and only won 1. I just had to get that.
And he
in somehow.
still hasn't led a lap this year.
Still hasn't led a lap this year. So
Jeez.
he did good in Atlanta last year. We're hoping he busts out of it this year.
Interesting. Well, there it is. That's a track trans. Now, interesting, coming up later in the show, we have got the man, the legend, Jeff Emig will be calling in, and he's going to give us some insight on Marvin Musquin and some of the top riders, so you're definitely going to stay around for that. We also do have that promo code coming up at the end of the show as well.
Don't miss that.
Do not miss it. But now let's get into it. Here it is. This is the top contenders. All right, so we have them on the table. Our top 4 contenders, easily the top 4 guys you should always have in your top 5 right here.
They're the most picked, and we agree with it.
We've got Cooper Webb, points leader still, Eli Tomac, Ken Roxon, Marvin Musquin. Let's go through, talk about each one, help some people out here. What do you got on Cooper Webb?
Cooper Webb, I mean, this guy's still doing something epic, even though he didn't win last week. He's won or taken second in 5 of the last 6 rounds with 4 wins in that span. He's led laps in 5 of the last 6 rounds.
4 hole shots, I saw.
4 hole shots. He's just in first more than anybody. I mean, he's led 29.1% of all laps this season.
And I
just don't see a reason not putting first.
And even last year, when he wasn't having the best season he's had, you still look at his Triple Crowns in Atlanta. He did good.
He finished 2nd and 3rd in the second and third.
He had a bad first. He got 14th, but then he went 2-3. So he had good results last year. So I see him to do really well this week again.
I agree.
Yeah, and then he's won both East Coast rounds this year.
So he's on a roll, no doubt.
All right, but
Eli
Tomac.
Tomac.
Tomac got back.
Tomac back.
All right, so we already talked about his stats from last year a little bit, but he went 5-3-2 last year, so he did have a good showing. Now, in last year, he won back-to-back races 3 separate times.
So he can do it.
So we all know Tomac can get on these runs and do really, really well. So if you won again this weekend, I don't think too many people are going to be too shocked. And you look at what he did last week, going from 11th to 1st in that first main. And in that 3rd main event, he got behind Roxon. I think he cruised it in for the victory.
Yeah, they let him know where he needed to be. He got there. And he's won both races. He's qualified first this year. So watch out for that. Ken Roxon.
Go.
Has the best average overall start of 3.89 and finish of 3rd this year.
Which is crazy considering how much Webb has won, but Roxon still has a better overall finish average.
Exactly. And he's led 39 laps, but no wins. I mean, it's crazy to even think about. But his finishes on the season, he hasn't won, but he's taken second, 3rd time, 3 times, 3rd 2 times, 4th 2 times, and 5th 1 time. So he's been everywhere in there but 1st. And his average finish per gate drop, 3.1. And he's qualified 8th and finished 2nd in both East Coast standard rounds.
Interesting.
So kind of weird.
Now the man of mystery, Marvin Musquin, did not have a good showing last week.
No, he's been kind of quiet.
Outside the top 5. So on average, this is crazy. He has finished on average 0.87 places away from where he qualifies. And he hasn't finished more than 2 spots from where he's qualified the entire year. That is why you
since round 2.
Or since round 2. That is why you have to look at qualifying to see where some of these riders are finishing. Some riders, not such a big deal, like Roxon, but for Musquin and maybe Webb, probably makes a much bigger difference.
Really weird with these guys. He's qualified 8th, finished 3rd, or finished 2nd in both East Coast.
Yeah.
He's qualified 3rd and finished 3rd in both East Coast standard rounds.
So Marv stays right where he qualifies. Interesting.
Yeah, he had good in Atlanta last year too. He finished 2nd overall.
And he qualified first. So it's still that same pattern that we're talking about right now.
Qualifying is going to tell me everything I need to know about these guys.
All right. Well, there you go. You've seen it. Those are the top 4 contenders. All these riders are going to most likely be in everybody's top 5 picks. So take those stats, use them, and figure out what you're going to do. But next up, we got to talk about it. We've got a lot of them this year. We got to talk about those guys that can crack the top 5. Here it is. This is our weekly spoilers. All right, so for this week's spoilers on the table, Blake Baggett, Joey Savacci, Chad Reed back in the conversation, Justin Brayton, Dean Wilson.
It's tough. It's tough to pick these guys.
It is tough, but here's some good stats on this. Blake Baggett right now, he has finished in the top 5 every time he's qualified 12th or worse.
I don't know why that makes sense or why, but
well, hey, for him it does. And also what's interesting is that we talked about it earlier, in the 3 rounds this year where there's been long start rates on those football stadiums, Baggett's been in the top 5 all 3 times.
Yep, after lap 1. It's huge.
Yes, it is. And then also, he did lead 6 laps in the 3rd main at Detroit.
He's looking good.
Okay, what do we got on Savacci here?
Savacci, his 2 top 5 finishes have been on the East Coast this year. He took 3rd in the 2nd main in Detroit. He's led 14 laps this season, the 5th most. Has the fourth best average start per gate drop of any rider, which really surprised me. And he's moving up fast in that category.
All right.
And he started 4th or better in 4 of the last 5 gate drops. So he's up there, no doubt. But he's only cracked the top 5 when qualifying 6th or better. So that's kind of his tipping point.
Interesting. All right. So Mr. Chad Reed, he has 2 top 5 finishes this year. Here's what's interesting. Last year, no top 5s. He has more top 5 finishes than Aaron Plessinger, Justin Barcia, Cole Seeley, and Brayton. You would never have thought that.
It's like been watching Benjamin Button or something. I don't know what's going on, but he's improving.
So he is improving. And then, his starts have been here and there. So as far as average finish by year, last year was 13.65. Right now, as of 2019, 8.88.
So his finishes are getting a lot better.
Take some momentum, give it to that man, watch him do it again.
That's right. But the bad side, the good, bad, and ugly, his 3 starts in the races with long starts were 12, 11, and 10, and he didn't finish in the top 5 in any of those. So
interesting.
Something to take away.
Okay. Brayton.
Justin Brayton. His East Coast standard round averages is starting 8.5, finishing 7.5, which isn't great. But with Barcia being out, with Seeley being hurt, it's going to move him up, no doubt. Okay. So his starting average at the Detroit Triple Crown was 5.67. So he might be on a roll there.
He almost won that first main.
Yeah. And he was 4th overall in Atlanta last year at that Triple Crown. So
all right.
Decent choice.
The last one we have up here, Dean Wilson. He's 5th in points, but his average finish is 7.75.
And he hasn't cracked the top 5 since Anaheim too. It's no hate on him, but I almost have to put him up here to say I don't feel comfortable with him in my top 5 at all. Not even a chance right now.
And he's qualified 12th and finished 8th in both of the East Coast standard rounds this year.
Yeah, a lot of riders qualifying.
So if you have Dino Wilson right now as maybe one of your top 5 guys, statistically not the strongest candidate for that.
Longer shot, no doubt.
But next up, we got to talk about it. This week's wild card. Christian, what position is it?
14th.
Ooh, we got some good stats for that. Here it is. This is the wild card watch.
All right, wild card this week, 14th. It's a tough one to pick. I like picking in that range, though. We've got our riders ranked from longest shot to best pick, in our opinion.
Okay.
I'm just going to say it real quick. The guy's taken 15th and 13th this year already.
Since Martinez?
Since Limegate, he's kind of been on the decline. But anyways,
all right.
Mike Alessi, we're going to hear his name 100 times, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Prediction, Mike Alessi will get one whole shot. Whether it's the LCQ, heat race, or the main event.
Or practice.
Okay. Mike Alessi. One of them. But next.
Kyle Chisholm. The guy's last 3 standard round finishes, 14, 15, 17.
He's around that range. Right Ben LeMay, he's already taken a wild card this year.
Yep.
Average finish on the year is 17, but he's taken 15 twice.
Yep.
Justin Hill. Who would have thought this man would be in the conversation?
This area.
The Justins.
Yeah, the Justins have a wide range of where they can finish.
Justin Hill's average finish this year is 13.17. He's finished 14th once and 13th 3 times.
So he's in the range. Bogle just has a giant range of where he can finish. He's been from 4th to 20th.
But his average is 14.25.
Yeah, so his average puts him there, but who knows where he's going to be.
His spread is big, so I don't know.
He's got a wide range.
All right, and then now, number 1 pick for the wild card. This is who I have this week, Tyler Bowers.
Yeah, we we looked at the lap charts from the Triple Crown last week, and he was in 14th like 2/3 of the night.
The man has been in 14th place for 59 laps this season.
We know he's better than that, but that seems where he's living. So
he's taken 14th in the last 2 rounds.
Yeah, I like him as my wild card.
All I know is that Mike Alessi is going to be laser focused.
Oh, guaranteed.
Well, there you have it. Those are some of our top picks for the wild card this week. What do you guys think? We get it right? But now, you know what time it is. We got to get him on the phone.
Talk to the man, the myth, the legend.
Jeff Emig. Here it is, Between Two Berms with Jeff Emig. All right, so here he is. We have him on the phone, the man, the legend. This is Between Two Birds with Jeff Emig. What's happening, Jeff?
Not too much. Just ready to talk some Supercross here for all of our Fantasy League listeners.
All right. Well, we're excited about it. Now, before we get into it a little bit, you've actually had a new grip recently come out with ODI. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, so I've produced another V2 lock-on grip with ODI. We're calling this one the Emig Pro. Really stoked about the design, but it is soft, compound. It's got a little bit of a convex shape to it, so it's a little bit thicker in the middle than it is on the ends. So just really stoked about the look of the grip, the feel of the grip, and being a V2 lock-on, which is the ODI patented design, we have the best lock-on / clamp-on, non-glue-on grip design in the world. And so just really excited to have my second product with ODI out, and the customers have really been happy with it too. I've gotten lots of great feedback.
Right on. Well, I'll just say that I actually have a set on my bike right now, and I think you guys did a killer job. Sweet grips.
All right.
Yeah, they've been awesome. Well, let's get in the meat and potatoes. Let's talk some Supercross. So, right now, it's been pretty wild. Tomac, Webb, they kind of got this battle going on, but Roczen and Musquin are right there in the championship hunt. If you had to choose between Tomac and Webb this weekend, who would you put in your top spot?
So the fact that Roczen and Musquin have been ultra consistent, they've both won multiple 450 main events. Our fantasy players are not thinking that they're should be considered for the win.
Oh, that's like 85% of people pick either Webb or Tomac every week.
And Musquin has not led a lap this year, so he just doesn't quite have that confidence from the players, I don't think. But right now, Webb and Tomac are hands down the two top pick riders.
So, if you're going single main event, man, that is a tough one. Tomac is so hit and miss with his starts, and I mean,
I like
at
where
the
you're going.
last race in the Triple Crown, he obviously showed more speed than anyone. I thought that it was an interesting weekend for Webb because you could tell that, okay, I'm the points leader now. You know, Ricky Carmichael and I, we were texting each other during the day. He's like, yeah, Webb is off the pace right now. He's really timid going into the whoops and really timid over the Dragon's Back, which is the whoops going up, like a little step up in the turn. And that's all commitment, and there's a lot of risk involved when you do that. So being the rider that's behind, once again, Tomac really performs well. And I know that he hates it when I talk about this. Last year on the broadcast on Fox Sports for Monster Energy Supercross, he didn't like some of my comments, but you see how he operates when he's down in points. Tomac is really good.
Yep,
right?
He's scary.
So Webb is now in a position where now we're halfway through the series, halfway through the championship. All of a sudden, you got it. Your mind starts creeping in there, like, okay, don't mess up. When you're behind, you're like, well, what do I have to lose? Right, and that's where Tomac rides really well.
So do you think Tomac's got the upper hand for this weekend?
I think for a single race win, sure. I think he does. I think he's got the speed. I think he has the confidence. You just still can't count on Tomac being consistent enough to be the champion after 17 rounds. He has to prove it. I mean, when I look at those four names and the history of Webb, Roczen, Musquin, and Tomac, I think when the pressure's on, and you can tell this is going to be a very pressure-filled championship for all four of these riders. In the end, if I had to put my money on it, I would say that Webb is going to go on to be your champion. And I know we're halfway through. I know what I always say for a rider that's down in points, if you lose X amount of points in the first half of the season, you should be able to pick up that amount of points in the second half. And yes, in Detroit, Webb was a bit shaky in the beginning. He looked a little conservative, but what you saw is he battled through all of that. He had 3 main events to battle through sort of the nerves. I feel like they probably had a little bit of nerves going. He said he didn't like the specs that they went with on his chassis setup. Mm-hmm. And then by the end, he ends up winning the final main event. And I think that was a big mental victory for Cooper Webb.
Oh, no doubt.
With those victories come belief. And that Tomac had the whole night dialed and then blows the start in the 3rd race. And the comments were unbelievable because he's like midway through the race, he's sitting there, thinking to himself, what am I doing? I need to get my head out of my butt, and I need to put a charge on. And he did that.
Yep.
So, unfortunately, he ended up winning another Triple Crown event. I forget how many that is now total, but so he kind of ended a bit maybe as a nice sort of consolation, but definitely I would say that overall he's got to feel pretty confident about how the night went. And then Muscan and Roxon, on the other hand, I think they're just kind of right there playing it safe.
Just wait.
Sure.
They haven't made any big mistakes,
It's true.
No doubt.
Well, I like your thinking. I like Tomac for this weekend too, but yeah, Webb overall championship-wise, I think he might be the safer bet just looking off of, what the story has been so far this year.
If I absolutely had to put my hard-earned cash, and I have to work for my money these days, selling grips.
Selling grips.
If I had to put grip money down, I think I'd put it on Webb after 17 rounds.
The grip money on Webb.
I'm going to have to agree with that.
All right. That's really good information. Well, hey, man, we appreciate you calling in. It's always cool to hear from a past champion what his thoughts are. Some pretty cool insight on these riders, and I agree with pretty much everything you said.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it, man. So, hey, man, thank you so much. Awesome grips. Congratulations on that. And if you guys are listening or watching, go out and get a set of these Emig Pros because they rock.
That's right.
Yeah, and the Emig Pro is available at Rocky Mountain MC, parts, apparel, and accessories.
There you go.
Ready.
All right.
That's what I'm talking
Thanks,
about.
Jeff. All right.
See you guys.
We'll see
See
ya.
ya.
And there you have it.
Good stuff.
Good stuff from the past champion, Jeff Emig. Now you know what time it is.
Time to lock him in.
Let's do it. All right, Christian, this week's picks. Before you lock him in, just got to say we lost some points to Jim and Daniel last week.
We did.
We did. We got to slam that door shut.
I agree.
All right. Tell us about this jerky you're eating
Just
right now.
big shout out to Rich, maybe, the guy who won the Dunlop trip last year, hooked it up, sent us some jerky.
So I feel like we won.
Yeah, we win.
All right.
Good day for that.
Tell me about your picks, though. Lock them in.
I'm going back to Cooper Webb to win. He's just too consistent.
Okay.
Ken Roxon second. Blake Baggett, long start, I think favors him and Roxon, is why I moved them up a lot.
Okay.
Eli Tomac fourth, Marvin fifth, Tyler Bowers wild card 14th.
All right. Well, I'm going to just take what you just said and switch it up a little bit. I've got Eli Tomac first place. He's going to repeat. He's done it multiple times. He'll do it again. Ken Roxon second place. I've got Cooper Webb third, Blake Baggett fourth, Marvin Muscan fifth, and then I've got Tyler Bowers as my wild card as well. We need to double up this week.
And it matters. Points matter this week. Jim and Daniel from Race Day Live gained on us a little bit.
Well, it's all right.
I just feel like they creaked the door open to see what's going on. We need to slam that thing shut.
Just close it.
Shut them down.
All right, well, there it is. They are locked in. Don't worry about that stumble. But now let's talk about why you want to be playing RMFantasy SX. Let's talk about it. This is our prize recap.
So before we get into the prizes this week, everybody's a winner because we have a new offer code. Give you an extra 10% off closeout gloves.
Every time you say that, it reminds me of Oprah in her show.
Everybody
right.
Everybody gets an offer code. This week's offer code is MXGlove10. Get an extra 10% off all closeout gloves Friday and Saturday.
And there you go. Get some new gloves.
Yep. Week 9 prizes.
Weekly prizes. We got 4 sets of Pirelli MX32 tires for first place, along with Supercross 2, the video game. Second place, 6D ATR2 helmet. That's a nice one. Third place, Pro Honda prize pack. Then Fly Racing, ASV levers, Fox Casual, Spending Spree, Galfers getting in there, a Cherubies MX9 with MIPS from Bell, Dirt Tricks recording rear sprocket, and of course, 90 Rocky Mountain gift cards.
Yep, huge prizes up this week. Then we have, of course, the yearly grand prizes still up for grabs. Top scorer for the year is going to take a Race Prep KTM 450 SXF. Second place, the Race Prep KTM 250 SXF, and then all sorts of prizes from trips to Moab, Monster Energy Cup, Dunlop Brock Glover Legend Ride, Fly Racing, Gear and Casual Package, Milestone Video Games, Console and TV, Motion Pro Tools, Tusk Impact Wheels, and Oakley Sunglasses and Goggles. So a lot up for grabs.
A lot up for grabs. And remember, you don't have to play every week to win a weekly prize. So if you got a late start in the season, go to RMFantasySX.com, create your free account. You can always win a weekly prize. Right. And don't forget, we are going to drop the 2 lowest scores at the end of the year. So if you've had a couple off rounds, don't stress about it. Just keep watching the show, using those stats, making your picks, and winning some fantasy points.
And make sure to join up in our group, RMFantasySX Rivals.
Yep.
Compete with us, talk smack, whatever
like
you want to do. We just want to hear from you.
Well, hey, thanks for tuning in this week. I am Chase.
I'm Christian.
We'll see you next week.